requesting Okshita to share the screen and enlighten us.
Hi, good evening, sir. Yeah, I'll just share my screen so that we can understand better. Mm. Am I audible now? Right?
Yeah,
Okay. So far, we discussed about the behavioral, about sir, of course. Then, what is economics? And then, just a moment. Okay. Now we will come on to why do we study economics? I hope everyone remembers what is economics. So basically, economics is about production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Now, why do we study economics? Now, the basic question is that whenever, be it a medical student, be it a computer science student, or be it any student of any field, they would be curious to know that why should we study economics. So first of all, as per Harvard Business School of Economics, they say that studying economics help us to understand our own spending habits. So one of the major reason is that you'll understand your willingness to pay. So for example, you have a willingness to pay for a good or service. Now there is a gap between hypothetical willingness to pay and actual willingness to pay. So what happens is that when you will be able to understand that, am I really willing to pay for this product, or it's just that in my mind I have thought that yes, I would be willing to pay or no, then your decision making process would be influenced, and then you would be able to make better decisions. So theoretically, of course, we need to understand the world around us. So economics help us to make an informed decision. So economics help us to understand how the economy works, how it affects our daily lives, and how we can make an informed decision. So if you know about the process of decision making, then you would be able to make better decisions. The biases may not be may not be completely eliminated, but yes, to some extent you would be able to identify your biases. So how we can make informed decisions about our own economic well-beings. Improving economic outcomes. Yes, we do study economics because we can make a positive impact. So we can identify the policies and strategies that promotes economic growth, reduce poverty and inequality, and improve standards of living. Now, this has got a lot of information in it. So first of all, identifying policies and strategies. These can be related to a nation, a firm, or an individual. The strategic decision making can be of individual spendings, can be of a firm's spending, can be of a non-corporative organization spending, or the strategic decisions on investments, spendings, on allocation of resources, allocation of time, that promotes economic growth. Yes, so as we move from micro to macroeconomics, the economic growth part is covered, but strategies is an important part when we study economics. When we study macroeconomics, when we study about industrial revolution, or when we study about how the gross domestic product can be, I'll explain later. So how the gross domestic product can be increased or decreased based upon the mindset of the government, then that can promote economic growth, reduce poverty and inequalities. So, policy suggestions which are implementable after researching well, then we can reduce poverty and inequality. There are other concepts related to it, like inflation, hyperinflation, which we will discuss later. So, how does it helps in reducing poverty and inequalities? This would be discussed in details. And improving standard of living. So, standard of living is something that includes our spending habits. So, there can be low standard of living and high standard of living. So, low standard of living is where people get to meet their basic demands, and they do not have a trade off between uh, food inflation, like food and medical services. So, they have a basic standard of living. High standard of living is people who have a lifestyle where they have their necessities, then they have their luxuries. So when luxuries become necessities, then they have a higher standard of living. This may depend upon geographical location as well. So country to country, the standard of living also changes. Making informed decisions. Next point, as we discussed, economics provides us with the tools to analyze data, evaluate options. So, data analysis can be of various types, which we will discuss further. It can be at micro level, individual level, it can be introspection, not really introspection, it can be time series analysis, it can be mm, panel data analysis, and there are various models which we will study based upon the data. Then evaluate options and make informed decisions about investment, career, and personal finance. Of course, when we would see, I'll give you an example over here. Suppose you go to a simple grocery store, and you have various economic references at that time, and then you start to think what I should buy and what I should not buy. Now, how do you have economic references? So when you go to a grocery store, so there are you have been buying vegetables from a local market, and you know that it's like 20 rupees kg is potatoes, and 30-40 rupees kgs is tomatoes. When you go to this grocery store with big lights and everything is packed beautifully, wrapped beautifully, now you have a reference point at that time also. And now they are charging you 40 rupees kg potatoes and 60 rupees kg tomatoes because of their beautiful packaging, 1 kg packaging, 2 kg packaging. Now you have an economic reference. So you make an informed decision based upon the options and the references that you have. This this kind of informed decision making comes when you have economic knowledge. This is on a very small scale, right? when when we study economics, we get to know an international perspective also. We get to know about various cultures, how do they measure their economies, how are they managing inflation, how are they making trade-offs between various goods and services. So this economics help us to identify those parameters and make our decision making process more simplified. Developing critical thinking and problem solving skills, this we just now discussed, that it tells us how to think critically and analytically, how to evaluate evidence, and how to develop well supported arguments. So I hope it's clear till now. There are other things also that we study economics because it is a part of our everyday life, and it helps you to understand the market dynamics. It helps you to understand how is demand formulated, why are prices rising, why is supply being increased or decreased in an economy, or why why do you uh, why do some people prefer bread butter over parathas, and why do some people prefer idli over parathas? This food preferences, everything is a part and parcel of economics. Now let's move on to the scope of economics. So scope of economics is, first of all, microeconomics. Microeconomics is simple when you study about individual economic units, how a individual unit, how a person X makes a decision of buying something or selling something. Or in household, household as in like based upon household income, what are their household spendings? This is also a microeconomics only. Firms and markets. Firms can be different kind of firms which can be of same commodity, different commodities, like homogeneous products like vegetable market, internet supply, electricity supply. That's monopoly. Then there can be a competition between the firms, imperfect competition, where similar products are sold, like Lays and Kurkure, or what do you say, different cell phones are sold. So the utility of the product is same, that is like making calls and receiving calls, but they have got different features, so that is differentiated features. So firms behave accordingly. If they have a monopoly, they can make prices. If they do not have a monopoly, like vegetable sellers, perfect competition, then they take prices. Then they cannot charge high. If they charge high, no one will come to them. If they charge low, everyone would come to them. So they cannot do that. And different forms of market. Macroeconomics. Now, when we combine or aggregate these individual units, then we study economy as a whole. And that can be Indian economy, Canadian economy, American economy, European economy. So this economy as a whole developed after mercantilism. I'll explain that later. But yeah, we study economics as a whole. That how does European markets, if they want to have access to Indian markets for a specific product or service, or how can they, come into our economy, and when they want to trade with our economy, then we move on to international trade. So that's, yeah, that's the next point. So including issues such as economics growth, inflation, and unemployment. Inflation can be walking inflation, like creeping inflation which rises slowly, walking a little bit more than point of inflation. How do we calculate the inflation rates? What are the different types of consumer baskets or the producer's basket? So this all is macroeconomics. And then unemployment are also different types of unemployment: voluntary unemployment, involuntary unemployment, frictional employment. So I don't want to go like gibberish. So yeah, voluntary employment is that if someone doesn't want to work, right? They have maybe they do not want to work because they are homemakers, or they do not want to work because they do not uh, feel like working. There can be various reasons. Frictional employment is like of daily wages. Like suppose I live in Shimla. So here we have 3 months ka holiday, 100 days holiday. No one works. So our house helps, or our carpenters, or our daily wages do not have employment at that time of at that point of time. So that's a frictional employment due to seasonal changes. Then there is involuntary employment. You have got degrees, you have got a PhD, but you're not getting employment because of high population or some other reasons. That's That's our involuntary employment. Now, next, let's move on to international trade. So, it's a study of trade between the countries and its impact on the economy. So, we know the dollar and the rupee price fluctuates. Why does that fluctuate? Does it have relations with trade? What kind of goods and services are being traded? What kinds of taxes are being imposed? Custom duties, import duties, or why does an economy as a whole, while trading, behave in a manner and does not behave? So, very basic international trade theory is the surplus and the deficit wala. So, what happens is, suppose US is a technical hub and India is a labor market. To some extent, it may be true. So, whatever, if you want to make a table, India has a cheaper labor over here. And if you want to make a computer, US can do it in a cheaper price. So for 100 rupees, India may you can make a table, and for 10,000 rupees, you can make a basic computer in US. Now, what happens is India can produce a lot of tables, but for computer, India would have to allocate resources and finances up to 20,000 rupees, right? And for table, US would have to take 1,000 rupees ka resources. So US and India would be beneficial when they trade among themselves. So India can import from US the computers because they have their production at 10,000 and we have our production at 20,000. So India kya karega? India will import from US, and India can make tables at 100 rupees, whereas US is making tables at 1,000 rupees. So why would US make tables at 1,000 rupees when it can import from India at 100 rupees? So it will import from India. So this is the what do you say, basic, not assumption, but basic base of international trade. The foundation of international trade was on this. Then we moved on to various theories and formulated customs lagaya, surplus lagaya, cost lagaya, and import duty lagaya, export duty lagaya, market efficiency lagaya, and then international trade. Now, next, let's move on to public finance, the study of government revenues and expenditure, including taxation and public spending. So, finance all about government. How does government earns? How does government sells? How does government fix the rate of taxation? What kind of taxation it should be? Higher income should be taxed at higher levels, or lower income should be taxed high. So there are terms for it. Ki should be the public spending ko, how to allocate the public spending. So government has, suppose 500 trillion economy we have, and government has like 500 crores ka budget. Okay, now government would like, how do government allocate this 500 crores to roads, to shipping, to ports, to airways? That's the study of public finance. Now, basic, very important theory of public finance is again when everyone is better off. So, no one can be better off without making someone else worse off. We'll discuss that in later. Simple matlab kya hua ki if I am benefiting, everyone is benefiting. Lekin agar if I am benefiting more than someone else, then the other person would be at a loss. That's the public finance. So optimal public finance is when everyone is at a profit. Then public finance may there are free riders. For example, if government thinks of spending 1 crore rupees on pesticide spraying, and everyone is now getting pesticide sprays. So in a colony, there are people who have paid taxes and there are people who have not paid taxes. So who have paid taxes, their money is utilized for spraying of pesticides, but the free riders are people who are getting the benefits without paying taxes or without incurring the cost of it. So these are some of the things we study in public finance. Then development economics is again about, it's more of a research oriented thing, where we study economic development and growth in not really low income countries, medium income countries as well. So low and what do we say, developing economies. We do not say the low income economies or countries, we say development economies is how to make a developing economy developed. So India is a developing country and US is a developed country. So how can we study the Indian economy in a way that we can help it to develop? Okay, now let's move on to the there are others also, economic thoughts and experimental economics, behavioral economics. There are other fields of economics as well. Then there is econometrics, which combines economics, maths, and statistics, modelings, and all. But right now we'll just limit it to here only. Okay, is there any question so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now let's go on to the methods used in economics. There are many methods used in economics. So first, let's start with theoretical models. Theoretical models are based on theories, and then we convert those theories into mathematical models by some assumptions and quantifying or making axioms of that assumptions, and then mathematical models are developed. For example, utility, when we place a value to utility, then a mathematical model for that utility would be created. And when we plot that utility across x and y axis, suppose number of glasses of water on on x axis, and on utility in terms of numbers, you associate utility, you give a preference. So then there is cardinal and ordinal, where you give ranking and where you give in numbers. So the models are developed. So mathematical models that simplify complex economic relations and help us to understand how the economy works. Then we move on to the empirical methods. The empirical methods, when we have data about uh, like large data about number of people employed. Then we move on to, there are various curves like aggregate demand curve, aggregate supply curve, yield curves we'll discuss later. So on macroeconomics, when we have got secondary data, so we use the data and statistical techniques to test hypotheses. So there are two types of hypothesis: the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. On null hypothesis, we say that there is a hypothesis of no difference, and for alternative, there is the hypothesis of difference, and estimate relation between economic variables like economic variables like investment and consumption, investment and wage rates, so unemployment and wages. So the wage and the unemployment can be plotted on a graph, and then we can understand what kind of relation is there. Is there an inverted U or an S shaped curve? That happens with the help of the empirical data. Experimental methods, yeah. So experimental methods was it is the use of controlled experiments to test economic theories and evaluate the impact of policy interventions. So of course, in economics, we cannot do controlled experiments, but economists have developed uh, a methodology to do controlled experiments and evaluate the impact of policy intervention. So I'll take a random effect model where Abhijit Banerjee came to India and studied about poverty, and then he did an experiment on the random inputs and postulated a experiment that was an experimental method, and then the evaluation of the policy inflation, like policy intervention. Suppose there is like policy of Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, where government decides that okay, uh, in a agar anyone who has studied till class fifth, they would be given 100 rupees per month. So there is a policy intervention. Now, when we study the impact of policy intervention, it may be classified as experimental economics, because when you right now also when you Google something and you use AI, there is a small notification that it's an experimental thing. So yes, we can perform experiments on economies. There have been various instances where experiments on economies have been performed during world wars, where they moved a huge lot of people to one from waged employers from one nation to other nation, and they try to understand what will happen. These are different kinds of case studies. Now, survey research, the use of surveys to collect data on economic attitude, behavior, and outcomes. So, survey research is nothing but you prepare a survey. Just say the normal example is population census, where you go to each and every house. You not only count the population, but there are various variables that you take into consider: number of females, number of males, number of educated people, uneducated people. Then you have, so after survey, then you have the database like NSSO database, UDICES database. UDICES is for education. So these are all survey researches, and from that, economic outcomes, economic attitudes, behaviors, outcomes can be predicted when we apply different models to it. And then there is case studies. So case studies is when you have a special economic event, policy, or institution, and then you try to understand that what would be the impact of that on the economy. So there was in this 2010, I guess, the British petroleum oil spill leakage, when the company was defamed, and it was like it doesn't take care of the marine ecosystem, and lots of marine ecosystem was harmed due to this thing. And then they have their share market also, uh, kind of shareholders had to bear a lot of loss. So there are various case studies that we can do study for business economics or the core economics, depending upon the context. But one thing that I would like to discuss here is two main methods that we use in economics. One is the deductive method, and the other is the inductive method. Now, deductive method is that uh, when we have it's an analytical method. When we have the assumptions, we have the models, and we try to come to a conclusion. That's a deductive method. So this method was our um, I'll just share the deductive method with you. Just give me a moment. I'll just explain it to you. Yeah. So here it is. So there are two methods, basically deductive and inductive method. So here we start by assuming the factual information, or the facts that we have. And from those facts, we try to do a logical reasoning, and with that analytical abilities, we come to conclusions. So first of all, what we do, we observe the given topic, then we make a hypothesis, and then after the logical reasoning or experimentation of the hypothesis, we come to conclusions. So this is our deductive method. And in inductive method, what we do is we move on from a practical outlook, or a scientific problem. So so that we can have more accurate findings, more accurate solution using the theoretical knowledge and the practical applications. So inductive method में there are two forms: statistics and experimentation. So this is how we basically observe with statistical forms of investigation. It includes a lot of facts, numbers, quantities, and formal tests. Now let me move to deductive and inductive. Why am I going on deductive and inductive method? Because we'll study the classical and the neoclassical theories. So deductive method ka basic origin was from classical theories, in inductive ka neoclassical theory. The technique of deductive method is abstract, inductive ka practical hai, and then the procedure is that from facts we come to logical reasoning, and in inductive method we come from practical scenario to scientific knowledge. We'll also link it to the behavioral economics. So here the scope is that it works under scientific social science model, and it works under the science model, not exactly science model. It can take different models. This is universally applicable, this is situation specific, and this in this the results are confirmation of the making of the hypothesis, and this gives us inductions give us generalized results. So deductive is highly structured method, whereas this is less structured method. Now we have discussed about the methods used in economics. By studying economics and its various subfield methods and application, we can gain a deeper understanding of the economy and develop the skills and knowledge needed to make informed decision. So you know two processes of thinking abhi to, theek hai, deductive and inductive, in which we think the classical and the neoclassical economist thought and contribute to the economic development and growth. Ab wo kaise hoga? Now let's discuss that. First of all, let's start with the behavioral economics, decision making. Initially, we have to now what would why do we need to study economics, more specifically behavioral economics? Because this course will like introduce you to the tools for improving the process of decision making. Now, how do you acquire information? How do you adopt information, and what are the strategies that you use while making the decisions? And you may not be knowing it, like you may be doing some of the decisions, like some decisions you make that are very good, and some decisions you make that you regret later. Why does that happen? And is it possible that we can make all decisions optimally, or is it not possible? These are the types of questions we'll try to understand. And how can we do that? Removing biases is impossible. Like all the biases, removing all the biases is impossible, but you can identify your biases and remove it to make better decisions. We'll learn that. Okay, now what are your weaknesses, what are your strengths in making financial decisions, in making everyday decisions? That also we'll learn over here. Now let's start with then you learn about rational and irrational, rational choices model. That what is rational? Rational is basically when why do we say it is a rational consumer? Because the consumer has consistency in choice. So is it possible to have consistency all the time or not? What was the traditional approach, and why this framework of traditional approach changed? And then we try to understand that how can we how can we move towards a modern approach, more inclusive approach? So what does this really all mean? We learn that. Now let us start with what is a good decision. Okay. Now, see, every day we make numerous decisions while driving, while going to shopping mall, responding to emails, meeting friends, and numerous other situations. Most of our times, the decisions are very good. For example, you may be driving a car or an Activa. How many times have you avoided accident by pressing brakes at the right time, by taking correct overtakes? How many times have you had a conversation when you didn't said the wrong things? Of course, we do conversations like daily. For meetings, we have a more formal conversation. For friends, we have a more informal conversation. So some decisions are difficult and some decisions are easy. Now, competent people find it difficult to decide about investments. Why is it not as easy as deciding upon eating a dosa or a plate of noodles? And why is it difficult for us to decide upon our investments? Is there a time constraint? Is there a time effect? Is there an emotional influence? What are the reasons? Many people find difficult to decide about healthcare. Why do people find it difficult to decide about healthcare? Why is it that one treatment should be opted for or the other treatment should be opted for? Should I go to a private hospital or a public hospital? Should I get a diagnosis from a public hospital and then get a treatment from a private hospital? Why do people have those decisions that they are difficult to make? Of course, finance is an important part, but why is it? That question we'll try to answer. How can we improve decisions that we make? That also we'll learn. Now let's move further. So how can we how can we improve decisions that we make? First of all, we need to understand why do people make the decision that they do make. So why is studying decision making why studying decision making can be so important? I have a question over here which we will discuss at the end of the class. The question is, do you remember a time where you made a difficult decision? What were your challenges? And this is the kind of typical question asked in an interview, be it a panel interview, one-on-one interview. They ask you this question. So yes, you have to provide that answer. What are they trying to test over there? That I'll answer later. Now let's study why decision making is so important. So now imagine a cancer patient being given two options of treatment, with each treatment having, see, if a cancer patient goes for surgery one, there are two options. Either there are like 80%, 90% chances of cure or 10% chances of death. Surgery two, same chances of cure. Okay, 90% chances of cure with 9% chances of uh, surviving the second surgery, but with severe complications. Complications may be severe diarrhea, vomiting, or any complications. These are not really complications, but yeah, suppose. So, which option would you choose? So what was observed was कि when people have to make decision for themselves, they would choose option number one, and when people have to make decision for someone else, they'll choose option number two. So why would option number one be more popular? Now in economics, incentives matter. Okay, people tend to purchase more of the product when its price decreases. Now, when price decreases, what kind of incentive people have? A financial incentive, right? That they would be able to save more money. That is why we have a downward sloping demand curve. I'll show you the demand curve in further slides. So people tend to work harder when they are paid more. Like, is it true or false? This is also a kind of a thing. We have that, we'll work harder if we'll paid more. Lekin, is it true all the times? No, it's not. In some cases, incentives backfire. For example, backward bending supply curve of labor with money and leisure. I'll show you the backward bending supply curve. We'll discuss it later also, but then also happens in a backward bending supply curve. So we'll discuss it later only. So what happens is there is a trade-off. People have a trade-off between working and leisure. So एक point आता है, there is a point where this upward sloping, suppose on y-axis we plot number of hours, on x-axis we plot on x-axis we plot leisure, and on x-axis we plot the number of hours working. So initially the curve tends to increase, as in with no more number of working hours, people would work harder, would devote more time. But at a specific point of time, uh, point of curve, people would, what would they do? They would start preferring to rest rather than earn. So, what is it? It is kind of a reference point. I'll explain it to you later. Now let's see. When does incentives backfire? You see this is a photograph of a gold medalist, a silver medalist, and a bronze medalist. So the gold medalist is very happy, the bronze medalist is also very happy, but this silver medalist is someone who just give up, just is able to give a small smile. So can anyone, like, can you try to answer this question, why does this happen?
Maybe her expectation is not going to fulfill, and she uh, thought she will gain the first prize.
Yes, very good.
That is true.
So, yeah, true. So, you have said very, yeah, like you have given the right point. It just needs a little bit of paraphrasing. So how do we put it? We say the reference point, not the expectation, but the reference point. So when the person who has got a gold medalist, her reference point is the entire cohort of people who were running or taking part in the Olympics. Usme she's saying like, okay, I got first point. The silver medalist, just by maybe a little bit of margin, is not able to obtain the gold coin. So her reference point is gold coin. She is comparing her position to the position first position holder. The second position holder is comparing her position to the first position holder, whereas the bronze or the third position holder is comparing her position to, not comparing, referring herself to the entire cohort. She would have got nothing, but she got a bronze, so she's very happy. Now the silver one is saying that I could have got gold, but I have got only silver, so she is like barely happy. So that's the reference point, which you rightly point out, that her expectation or her reference was the gold medal, but she got a silver medal. So first place holder and the third place holder are beaming with smile, but the second place holder just managed to pass a smile. Why does that happen? Because counterintuitiveness is also something there. Intuition is a poor guide for understanding real world behavior. I'll explain this later. Okay, now let's move on to the traditional economic model. Now, the traditional economic model is rational choice model. Now, what is the rational choice model? A framework for understanding and often formally modeling social and economic behavior. When this rational choice model originated, it originated in 18th century. Now, traditional economic model, okay, we'll just learn a bit of a theoretical key concepts. Now, rational choice theory looks at three concepts: rational actors, self-interest, and invisible hand. Rational actors are people who make consistency in their choices. Self-interest is that people behave in a manner to maximize their self-interest. So they'll always behave in a manner that I get the maximum benefit out of it. And the invisible hand. So when people behave in their maximizing their self-interest, the invisible hand says that demand or supply will adjust accordingly, that optimal price and quantity is automatically established in the market. So what happens is that when people, when we have a demand curve and when we have a supply curve, so if people would behave in self-interest, that demand and supply curve would automatically obtain an equilibrium point. This was the theoretical foundation of Adam Smith. It can be explained with graph also. Now, application. The main paradigm in microeconomics and is also central to political sciences, sociology, and philosophy. So, this is applicable in political sciences, sociology, and philosophy as well. Now, what are the assumptions? That the actors, that is the economic agents or the people, have perfect information. Perfect information means they know everything about the market. They understand their objective perfectly. They know about themselves also. What they want out of a commodity or a services, they know that and can use this information to make decisions. And they have the ability to use that information to make decisions. Now let's study about rationality versus irrationality. Okay, we studied about our first assumption was rational actors. Assumption is also rational actors, and the concept is also based on rational actors. So what is rationality? First of all, rationality is consistency in choices. Now, what is a misconception? That rationality means the same thing in everyday conversation as it does to the behavior of economists and other scientists. So what do we associate rationality with? That the consumer is logical, is in control of his actions, while decision making is thoughtful, and they deductively reason through complex problems to arrive at a solution without being burdened by unwanted emotions. No, this is not rationality. Rationality is that consumer would going to make the same choice again and again, and that would be fitted into some model. In decision making, rational means consistency with some model. Rational decisions are simply consistent. The preference is towards better things than worse things. For example, we always prefer more money than less money. That's consistency in decision. If I give you 5 rupees, a choice between a 5 rupees and a 10 rupees, you'll obviously choose 10 rupees. So that's consistency. If I give 10 people same choices, all the 10 people would choose 10 rupees over 5 rupees. That is rationality. So, how do we study rationality in terms of economics? In terms of economics, they are capable to evaluate the amount of utility they have derived, and they are able to make those choices the that maximize their expected utility. So, what is utility maximization? Let's consider this. So, see, you have got two commodities. One is shakes and one is pizzas, right? Suppose here there are 10 shakes at let's start from point A. Point A, we have got 5 number of shakes and 5 number of pizzas. Okay, now over here we have got 10 number of shakes and we have got 2 number of pizzas. And over here we have got 2 number of shakes and 10 numbers of pizzas. So this line is called as indifference curve. What do we mean by indifference? That we are able to choose any one of them. Okay, now I can take itne 10 number of shakes and 2 numbers of pizza, 5 number of shakes and 4 number of shakes and 4 number of pizza, 5 number of shakes and 5 number of pizzas, and 2 numbers of shakes and 2 numbers of pizzas. Now, lower the indifference curve, lower is the utility. So this indifference curves give utility 75. So consumer is saying that if I consume anything on this line, then I'll get 75 utils of utility. If I consume anything on this line, then I'll get 100 units of utility. And if I get any combination of goods on this line, then I'll get 125 units of utility. So indifference curve का basic क्या होता है? Higher the indifference curve, more is the utility. Lower the indifference curve, lower is the utility. लेकिन obviously what would I choose? Point E or point D? D is 4 shakes and 4 pizzas, or six shakes and 6 pizzas. Obviously, I'll choose 6 shakes and 6 pizzas. More is preferred to less, na? But then there is a constraint, budget line. How much finances do I have? Now, 6 shakes and 6 pizzas may be costing me 20 rupees, but I have got only 10 rupees. So, anything that touches or is tangent to my budget line, जितना पैसा होगा उतना ही मैं commodity ले सकता हूँ. मैं D ले सकता हूँ, but I won't take D. Why would I take D when I'm getting more utility from point A? From D, I would be getting 75 utility. Now, from A, I am getting 100 utility. So, any point that is tangent to our budget line is the point that we consider the consumer is going to take for his maximum utility. So we were considering कि हाँ consumer बोल सकता है, consumer can tell मेरे को इतना utility, I'll get 75 utility, 100 utility or 125 utility. So the rationality in this model says that be it Akshita, be it Datta sir, be it Farah, be it any XYZ individual, he would choose point A. So that was the rationality. And considering past decision of rational decision maker and be able to incorporate in a mathematical model. And then they created a mathematical model, theoretical model भी बना दिया, mathematical model भी बना दिया, इसके derivative कर tangents, tan theta, everything they did. And this was the classical school of thought. These people were like, okay, we'll do like this. Now rationality, no, another thing that is very misconception is that rationality is selfishness. But no, rationality the model only states the preference consistently. It only states that preferences consistently leads to a choice. Now, you may have a choice between charity or donation or savings. You may have a choice between volunteering for an organization or working on your research paper. You may have a choice on planting new trees. So there may be various choices, and people may not be always rational. No? We choose to donate. I can have an ice cream, but I choose to donate. I may work on self-improving or do something that interests me better, but I volunteer for charity or I volunteer for garbage picking drives or anything. So it may be rational to give it to charity, to volunteer our time, or to help others, or to make sacrifice for the greater good. So utility is derived from not only your own outcomes, but also from the outcomes of the other. It is not only my individual outcomes. I may derive utility from why are NGOs flourishing? Why do people set NGO? Because people derive utility from donating. They derive utility from helping people. So that is the basic thing. Rationality is not selfishness. Now, next is rationality refers to outcomes of the decision. So basically, this is the as-if model that was by Herbert Simon, the bounded rationality. The concept of rationality as if suggests that individuals act as if they were rational, even if they are not consciously making optimal choices, but they make choices which are optimal as per their limited information. Also unbounded rationality, we would have a lot of information, but for bounded rationality, if you choose between strawberry and blueberry, you'll choose blueberry. you have a bounded like two choices, but you'll choose that would give you give you believe that it is a rational choice. So choice behavior can be described as if someone followed a rational process regardless of the underlying thoughts, beliefs, or computation. So let's just first let's study the simple assumption that people want more money, not less. We assumed ठीक है भाई, people को हमेशा more money चाहिए, not less. So people should be motivated by the opportunity to obtain more money. अगर उनको, if people have got an opportunity to get 500 rupees there rather than 100 rupees, then they'll prefer that choice. So money should be incentive that can shape people's behavior. And Gautam Gambhir also said that free services are not value. So we'll study this in the labor market and the consumer response to sales price. Now, this will continue in our next lecture because of the time constraints, like it's 8 o'clock. Now, the question that was there for our class was, what's the most difficult decision you have ever made? Now, why do the people ask about first of all, they are trying to understand about your confidence level. They are trying to understand, have you researched or gathered information or not. They are trying to test your strategic thinking, the cause and effect, the self awareness, and ethics. So this is something which you can better shape your answer if you know behavioral economics, if you know you if you have the foundation of the economics and psychology, then you would be better able to give answer to this question. You can form a better context to it. You can form a better way of presenting this to the interviewer, that yes, I was very strategic about it. In a company there were 10 employees, and out of that I was given the lead position, but I have never been a leader, so I was very cautious about it. I was also very biased because in school I have faced similar challenge and I failed, but how did I excel, and how due to my excellence in that particular project helped the company to flourish from a um, flourish from a 1 crore company to a 10 crore company. Just hypothetically I am saying. So this thing is also something that you will be able to better assess. Mm, shall I continue about labor markets and consumer response to sales price, or we can continue in the next lesson?
Yeah, next class.
Yes. Any questions or any confusions that you want to clarify, you can please ask me right now, or you can WhatsApp me or text me as well.
Okay, I have a little bit doubt about the deductive and the inductive thing. So if I go through the YouTube, I think I can get it a little bit.
Okay, so what I'll do is that I'll in the next class I'll explain the deductive and the inductive methods with a
Okay,
more realistic examples, and try to incorporate something that some examples that will help you understand that what is the difference between deductive thinking and the inductive thinking as well.
thank you so
So
much,
in
ma'am.
next lesson, for first 10 minutes we'll discuss this for 5-10
Okay,
minutes, that what is the deductive methodology and what is the inductive methodology. Okay.
okay, okay.
And in teaching the macroeconomics,
Hmm.
you are giving the example
Hmm.
which is very much related to the microeconomics.
Okay, sir.
So when you have given the example, that example is related to the microeconomics, but not the macro.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
When you have given the example, I'm not telling that is the growth, inflation, and unemployment. You have written the unemployment, and this
Unemployment, right.
unemployment sometimes it is very much related to the individualistic approach, because I am not interested for the employment. I am not interested in Japan. Now we have noted that is many people, they are not going to their jobs because they don't like to go to the jobs. So that is another issue. And one method that is not here that you may think about, that is the neuroeconomics.
Yes, sir.
There is another method that is the neuroeconomics. Another is the econo-informatics.
Yes, sir.
Econo-informatics.
Yes,
So
sir.
there are a lot of the economic data that is developing randomly in nature. They are not hypothetical in nature. They are randomly in nature. They are developing. And based upon that, how we can develop the model
Yes, sir.
that may
So
be considered as the econo-informatics, which
econ.
is usually followed by Uber, Ola. They are following the econo-informatics model. So you can think about that. And neuroeconomics, that is related to the behavioral economics.
Sure. So, so,
Related.
uh, so for macroeconomics, I'll just give a brief example, and for neuroeconomics and neurosciences and economics and econo-informatics, I'll have to work on it. But for yeah, so what happened was initially for Soma also, I would like to explain. Maybe she would also have this question in mind. So initially in 16th century, there was mercantilism. What happened in mercantilism was people started to assess the wealth of nations with the help of the amount of gold reserved. So they rose their gold reserves, and they said that okay, our worth is valued by the amount of precious metals that we have, that is gold and silver. So the correlation was basically between the ownership of this material and the increased amount of construction agriculture outputs and the merchant fleets that were of the navies. So basically, what happened was the military influence was very much on the symptoms of the economy, and a good economy was considered with a large amount of gold and silver reserved, and the bad economy was considered someone who did not have. Then Europeans came, and they studied about they discovered about the lands and the land agriculture and the land development. So the classical economists said that okay, the Adam Smith hypothesis, that said that all the economies having more land and they said that more wealthy looking economies are someone like they have like poor economies and the rich economies. So this was the bifurcation, labor based on the labor. Then came the industrial revolution, and then they assumed that okay, people would have rational preferences. Labor market disruptions happened. Marxists and all, they s- bur, 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 I forgot bur, 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 I am not able to pronounce it, but there was wealthy class and there was labor class, and then labor classes was like, okay, our rights are being violated, so what we will do, we'll have to revolt against it. And after that, Marxism came, and capitalists were exploiting the labor class, and then the marginalism came, and then after that a cognitive revolution came, where Freud and psychologists said that we have to study the cognitive biases and the psychological biases in economics as well, to understand what is happening. So then the expected utility hypothesis and the value of utility got discontinued, and expected utility models were founding their credibility, and till now we are trying to understand this. So yes, I'm not aware about the latest development. Neurosciences, I'll have to study myself also and then understand it. But this is the kind of complex matter that we need to understand these complexes so that we can make more better answers to the problems that we have in economy as well as in decision making behaviors. I have i have stuttered in between because I'm not getting words as per my thinking, so yeah, sorry for
No,
that.
this is okay. Whatever you have taught, that is okay. We have learned many things. And since we have learned, then automatically we have sort of the questions.
Yes sir, yes sir.
That is natural.
Yeah, but I'm forgetting that class ना जो उन्होंने exact terms दी थी, so I'll have to revise it.
Hmm. Because nowadays we have the several options. We have several options to purchase any product.
Yes sir.
Since we have many options, so naturally we are finding out which options are suitable for me and which options will be very costly. Sometimes we are thinking that this is my loss, but sometimes we are thinking maybe it is a loss, but definitely in later I will gain. For example, purchase of the flat. Sometimes you are thinking that is the purchase of flat, that is a loss. But some people are thinking, no, if we can purchase the flat later on, the price will be high. So at that time, we can sell it.
Yes
So
sir. This
that type of tendency individual has. So
yes this
initially they are thinking that is the loss is high, but later on the gain will be high. So like that, some people they are thinking in the different manner.
Yes, so they also think it as an investment. So they think that if I take a bank loan, the amount of money that I have to pay to bank would be incurred via rental income. So they have that kind of financial decision making mindset also.
The credit card is changing our mindset very much because some people are thinking that is okay if we can take the money or if we can purchase this thing, I can manage this money within this specific period. But sometimes it happens that is they are giving only the minimum amount, but not the full amount. Therefore, minimum amount is gradually increasing.
Yes, a time value of money.
Yeah, and also the value of money. And then the problem raised when the amount is very high. So this is the typical problem, the common people. Maybe we can think about the community economics later on. That is the distributed economy, what Rabindranath Tagore has thought of it. That is,
So,
each individual should be financially uh, efficacious. Each individual should be financially efficacious in the
yes,
community. That is his thinking, his philosophy. He wants to do it. Therefore, he developed the Sri Niketan concept. Shanti Niketan, after that, Sri Niketan. He thought about it.
yes,
So
sir.
that is very nice thing, distributed economy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Yes, sir.
Shoma, how is the
Yes,
class?
sir. Nice.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking about what's the that means the I have to make my decision properly. So this will help me
Yeah,
decision making.
yes. Major issue in economics is the decision making, your choice
Exactly. And
behavior.
exactly. You were talking about the flatness, sir. So that
Yeah,
is, I'm thinking that I'm the single one. So if I purchase a flat, what will be better? So after retirement, I will take one rented house or wherever I am staying. So that is what should be. That is also I'm in the biased. That means in the fickle minded on that topic. So that decision also I have to take.
yeah, that is true. Okay, so today's lecture will be available in YouTube, so students
Thank
will
you,
be
sir.
benefited through this. Akshita, I am requesting you, huh, if possible, do you know Canva?
Canava
Akshita?
one app.
Yeah, Canva is the app. Through this Canva, you can make the template, YouTube template. So if you
Yes.
can create the YouTube template, that will help me to give the cover of our YouTube video.
I don't have that much knowledge, but if you provide, so I can try. What kind of template are you saying, sir?
Related to the behavioral economics, for example, that is
Oh,
how we take the decision, financial decision. Whatever the discussion today we have,
mm,
based upon
mm,
that, you can make the template like that.
okay.
Small template. It is very simple. By using the Canva, you can do it. Okay, now I am closing.
Okay, thank you, sir.